During week 241 of Brada's Branded Thoughts, Jensen of Iowa women's basketball, the new head coach, making a couple of staff announcements through the university. We'll talk about the hiring of 2 new assistants, plus an exclusive interview with incoming Iowa football freshman and running back Xavier Williams. The bulldozer headed to Iowa City. In fact, he's now reported to Iowa City. He is knee-deep in summer workouts. We got a chance to chat with Xavier right before he got to Iowa City. An interview with Xavier and more coming up during week 241 of Brada's Branded Thoughts. This is from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core, click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. Week 241 of Brada's Branded Thoughts here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We are almost to the month of July. Summer is flying by. Not trying to rhyme, but I am. And hey, Big Ten Media Days is going to be here next month. If you watch the shows with myself and Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, we do a weekly live show over on his Iowa channel on YouTube. It's Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football on YouTube, Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. You've heard me say that before, because I'm still in disbelief that we're almost to July. And again, coaches and players will be available at Big Ten Media Days in late July. And then, of course, Iowa Media Day and Kids Day all in August. Summer is flying by. Football will be here before you know it. It's been a very newsy week, not only for Iowa football, recruiting, the Caleb Brown news. If you missed that, I published a segment regarding his arrest here a couple of days ago, but also some staff changes, some additions to the Iowa women's basketball staff that we'll run through in just a second. But I also got a chance to chat with Xavier Williams. You'll get that interview in minutes. Here's a kid who's got a good head on his shoulders and will bring a little bit of that thunder to maybe the Brevendal Lightning. That might be the future of that Iowa running back room. So you'll enjoy hearing from Xavier Williams, really good kid out of the Chicago area. But first, let's get to the news that broke here just hours ago. Jensen, new Iowa women's basketball head coach, Jensen, has announced the additions of 2 different staff members, one being Randi Henderson, formerly known as Randi Peterson. You'll recognize that name. She was an Iowa women's basketball player back at the turn of the century. Also, Sean Sullivan, who is a former Iowa graduate. He is a Regina High School alum, former team manager for the Hawkeyes, was also video coordinator briefly for Iowa. Both of these coaches have been hired as assistant coaches. Sean also taking on the role of general manager. So let's run through the bios for both of these very talented coaches who have very different but very solid resumes. We start with the more well-known of the two, and that being Randi Henderson. Again, Randi was formerly known as Randi Peterson. She is Randi Henderson because she married Hawkeye men's basketball great Duez Henderson. So there's a fun fact for you. Hawkeyes will be getting a couple former Hawkeyes back into the Iowa City area and back part of the Hawkeye family. Again, Randi's a UI graduate. She played for Iowa from 1997 to 2001. She's actually from Cedar Falls initially. She's a 3-year starter for Iowa. Really good Big Ten forward/center. She actually made all Big Ten first team as a senior. She made all Big Ten tourney team as a senior and was all Big Ten academic first team 3 straight years, led Iowa in rebounding in 2 straight seasons, led the Big Ten in rebounding during conference play in the 2000-2001 season. She finished her career with 936 career points and 745 rebounds. Let's look at the official University of Iowa release. We'll start from the top of this release that came down earlier on Wednesday. University of Iowa head women's basketball coach Jan Jensen has announced the addition of 2 new staff members, Randi Henderson and Sean Sullivan, both UI graduates. Henderson will serve as an assistant coach, while Sullivan will be an assistant coach and general manager. Henderson spent the last 7 seasons coaching at Washington University in St. Louis as the head women's basketball coach. Henderson's teams went 103-54. That's a .656 win percentage with 4 NCAA tournament appearances. She guided the Bears to 4 top 3 finishes in the University Athletic Association in 7 seasons. She led the Bears to the UAA title in 18-19 as the team went 13-1 during conference play. Washington University proceeded to have a deep run in the NCAA tournament, advancing to the sectional finals with a trio of victories, and concluded the year with a 22-7 mark. The success of the Bears led to Henderson being named the Central Region Coach of the Year by D3Hoops.com. She and her assistant coaches were named the UAA Coaching Staff of the Year as well. In her first season on the Danforth campus, Henderson led the Bears to a 19-8 record. The Bears earned an at-large bid to the tournament and advanced to the second round. Now, during 17-18, Washington University's offense finished in the top 10 nationally in 6 categories, including 2nd in three-point field goal percentage, 4th in assists per game, 5th in field goal percentage, 9th in scoring offense, 9th in assists, and 10th in free throw percentage. Those are some impressive numbers when you look at the entire nation. Those are national rankings. The Bears also ranked in the top 10 in assists to turnover ratio and assists in 18-19. Henderson arrived at Washington U after spending 2 years as an assistant women's basketball coach at Charlotte. So she does have some Division I coaching experience. She spent 9 years at Coe College here in Iowa, 1 season at Minnesota Morris. In her first season with the Niners, that's Charlotte, Henderson made an immediate impact, helped guide Charlotte to a 19-11 record, top 4 Conference USA championship ranking, and one of the best offensive campaigns in program history. The 49ers topped the league in scoring. Field goal percentage finished among the top 25 nationally in both categories. In her final season, Charlotte posted a 21-10 record, and they advanced to the Conference USA quarterfinals. Henderson joined the Niners after a 9-year stint at Coe. She also served there as the department's assistant athletic director and senior women's administrator. She led the Cohawks to a school best 3 20-plus win seasons, including a school record 26 on their way to the NCAA sectional semifinals in 2010 and 2011. Coe finished with a 14-2 mark in the Iowa Intercollegiate Athletic Conference that season, sharing the league's regular season crown before picking up the tournament title. She received 2 Coach of the Year honors and a nod as the WBCA West Region Coach of the Year during her Coe tenure. Her overall record with the program was an impressive .630 win percentage, the most wins by any head coach in school history. She guided Coe to a 90-48 ledger in conference action during her 9-year stint. Prior to arriving at Coe, she spent 1 season at Minnesota Morris. She earned Upper Midwest Athletic Conference Coach of the Year accolades. She directed the Cougars to a 16-10 record, including 10 wins in conference play to tie for second. She was an assistant at UMM for 2 seasons, 2003 to 2005, prior to becoming the head coach. Again, she's a native of Cedar Falls, began her coaching career as a volunteer at Athens High School in Ohio as a graduate teaching assistant. She actually got her master's degree at Ohio, so that's kind of her connections to the state of Ohio. She played collegiately at Iowa, mentioned she was a 3-year starter and a captain. She graduated from Iowa in 2001 with a bachelor's degree in health, leisure, and sports studies. And again, that master's degree was in recreation and sports sciences. She was Iowa Miss Basketball back in 1997. Now, as it relates to Sean Sullivan, he also was University of Iowa graduate. As I mentioned, he was a Regina High School alum. He served as the Director of Player Personnel Development and Recruiting at North Carolina the last couple of seasons. In June 2023, his title was updated to reflect his added role as an assistant coach for the Tar Heels in just his 3rd year with the program. That's notable. That's quite the step up for a guy with relatively little high major coaching experience. Now, he was the director of video for the women's basketball program at Pitt for 2 seasons. 2 years prior to that, he was part of the Penn State women's basketball staff, but he was director of scouting and digital technology. So again, the promotion at North Carolina was really significant. He was an undergrad at Iowa, spent 4 years as a women's basketball manager, then became the team's video coordinator. He spent a summer as video coordinator for USA Basketball, where he was part of the women's squad that won silver in the 2015 Pan Am Games. So what do we take from all of this? Well, first of all, the big thing I take, because I don't know either of these individuals personally, but the two big things I take away from this: one, Jan Jensen really treasures Hawkeye roots. And that's pretty consistent when you look at all of Iowa's coaches across the board, even Fran McCaffrey, who was an East Coast guy when he got here, but he's really embraced the past. I mean, I think about Matt Gatens. I know he played for Iowa during part of Fran's tenure. Kirk Spiraw, former Hawkeye, and Fran embraced him. I think that's key. You see that culture across the board with Iowa's major athletic programs. Kirk Ferentz is the same way. Jan Jensen continuing to embrace the Hawkeye roots. And Jan did coach Randi Henderson for one season. The other thing here is you look at the other Iowa assistants. We know Jenny Fitzgerald retired. Lisa Bluter is gone. The other Iowa assistants are all guards. So Abby Stamp, formerly known as Abby Emmert, Raina Harmon, Tania Davis, all guards. So it makes sense that even though Jan Jensen is a quote-unquote post whisperer, that she would want a former post that could help with that. Now, Jan Jensen is going to be heavily involved, similar to how Kirk Ferentz is heavily involved with the offensive line, but she is now more so an overseer. So she's going to need some help with the bigs. And frankly, this is a good thing. I think it's recognizing that you can't do it all as head coach. And it's different than with college football. You have a lot more assistant coaches in college football, but you're allowed more assistants in the women's game than you are in the men's game. So I'm not surprised that she brings in someone she's familiar with, who's had a lot of success, maybe not at the D1 level, but a lot of success. I mean, she had some success at the D1 level at Charlotte, but a lot of success at lower levels. I don't think it really matters. Find the best of the best as it relates to coaches. And this is somebody who has a lot of experience. The other thing about those three guards that are assistant coaches, they're all very young. All right. So here's somebody who, nothing against Randi Henderson's age. I'm not calling her old. All right. For anybody who can accuse me of that, I'm not calling her old, but she's experienced. She last played no one. She has been through the ringer now. Sean Sullivan's a little younger, but he's got Iowa roots. Obviously, North Carolina liked him. For him to go the direction that he did and continue to get promoted, that is a very positive sign. All in all, I mean, again, embracing Hawkeye roots and looking for someone to help with the post position and someone with experience in Randi Henderson, those are the biggest things that I take away from this. So congratulations to both of those coaches. I'll be anxious to get Kasheen Alexander's take on just the significance of this hire, and I'll be anxious to see if she sees things the same way. I'll have to tell her don't watch this show until her and I get to chat about it. So again, congratulations to Randi and Duez Henderson, who will be back in Hawkeye land, and Sean Sullivan, who will also be back in familiar territory. I think his hometown. Like I said, he graduated from Regina High a number of years ago. Also promised you an interview with future Hawkeye. Well, I should say current Hawkeye. He's on campus. He is enrolled. That is Xavier Williams, formerly of St. John, Indiana, in the Chicago area. An exclusive interview with Xavier coming up. You're watching week 241 of Brada's Branded Thoughts here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Straight from the man cave, Kinnick Under the Kitchen, authentic, original player artwork is being drawn up for Hawkeye fans everywhere. Locally made prints of stars wearing the black and gold from the past, present, and future. How about current Hawkeye superstars Cooper DeJean and Torrey Taylor, legends of the past like Jack Campbell, Spencer Lee, and Tim Dwight, plus future phenoms like Aaron Graves. There are so many options available. They make great gifts, and your purchase benefits the Hawkeye athletes wearing the black and gold. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook or at Under the Kitchen's new website. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Again, that's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. Pleased to be joined now by Iowa 2024 running back Xavier Williams, who is signed and ready to deliver. We're recording this on Wednesday, June 5th. By the time this thing goes live, he'll be in Iowa City. Xavier, welcome to the show. We are excited to see you in a Hawkeye uniform this fall. How's it feel now, just days away from your arrival?
It's very exciting, and I'm definitely relieved that the day is coming, and definitely excited to get to work for sure.
And you and I were chatting before we went live here. You're in a very unique class for this offense because it is the start of a new era with Tim Lester. And you're going to, obviously, I'm sure, spend the next few months getting to know Coach Lester. But I think it's probably fair to say that a big part of your recruitment and the reason why you settled on Iowa is who you're going to play for in Liddell Betts. Can we start there? I mean, Liddell is such a unique guy in that he was able to produce an NFL career. You have some of the same, I think, traits as it relates to size when you compare Liddell at his age to you. What was it about Liddell, and what's your relationship like with Coach Betts at this point?
Yeah, me and Coach Betts have a pretty good relationship. And then in terms of like getting coached by him, I thought it was a great opportunity to get coached by someone who's played at the highest level and obviously went to Iowa. So he knows like the culture and knows what it takes to make it to the next level. So that definitely did play a big factor on why I chose to go there, because I feel like someone who actually played the position and like knows what it takes could definitely develop me well.
Would you say stylistically you guys are similar? And when you look back at him as a player, I'm sure you've looked back at Liddell Betts' tape.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some similarities. He was definitely a very strong runner, and I feel like I'm a relatively strong runner.
So tell me about your game as a whole, because you're listed right now. You told me you're 6 foot 225. You're bigger than almost any other running back at this level heading into college. Most running backs are not 225 pounds coming out of high school. So talk about your strengths first. I think your ability to run downhill is clearly one when I see your tape, but talk about your strengths.
Yeah, I definitely think my ability to get north and south is one of my strong suits. And then I think my vision, I think I have pretty underrated vision. I usually could make something out of nothing, like whenever like the play goes wrong. And then I think I have a little bit of wiggle to my game too. Obviously, I'm a bigger kid, so like bouncing off of tacklers, so like finishing runs, but I think I have an underrated like a little shift to my game. But I think those are some of my strengths.
You're a very unique class because you have a guy in Brevendal who's, I don't want to call him a speedster. I think he's got a little bit of both as it relates to balance in his game, but he's breaking all kinds of track records for ADM here in Central Iowa. That tandem, what do you anticipate it to be, Brevendal and Xavier Williams together?
Yeah, I think it could be great. Obviously, like you said, he's having an amazing track season, and everybody knows it's no secret he's a super fast dude. So it could be a nice like thunder and lightning, especially like just like this a change of pace. I feel like obviously, like you said, he's a faster kid, and I'm more of a downhill type of back. So I think we could play off of each other very well.
One thing I saw on tape from you, Xavier, in addition to your ability to get north and south, you do have a pretty good jump cut for a kid your size. So you talk about agility. Not everybody has that. And of course, there's going to be a transition as you get to the Big Ten with everything. When you look at your game right now, where can you make the biggest improvement? Is it with your ability to make people miss, your agility? Where would you say your weaknesses and room for improvement lie?
I would definitely say like moves out in space, like when I'm one-on-one with like a corner or one-on-one with like a safety or something, just like having a go-to move out in space. And then also I would say my top speed. A lot of times, like I feel like I have relatively good acceleration. It's just like sometimes I plateau in my speed a little bit. So I've been working on that going into camp and stuff like that.
And you have been a part of Lake Central High School, and it's in, for people who don't know, St. John, Indiana. You have a very unique background. We'll get to your family background, your father's unique story in just a second. But you've competed at a pretty high level, 6A football in Indiana. What's that been like for your growth as a football player?
Yeah, it's definitely been great. I feel like Northwest Indiana doesn't get all the credit it deserves for the type of athletes and the type of competition we have up here. I play in the DAC conference, and every year it's a battle for like getting out of the DAC or winning the conference, I should say. So I feel like 6A football is the highest level in Indiana, like the highest class, I should say. So it's definitely been good in terms of like the competition I see and like the different athletes we see. So it's definitely helped a lot.
Do you have a guy that played either at Iowa or maybe in the NFL that you have emulated your game in any way off of?
Yeah, well, my favorite player, like my favorite running back, has always been Saquon Barkley. I feel like
Okay.
we have a similar build. Obviously, everybody knows he's like a freak of nature, so super athletic and stuff like that. But I like the way he moves like on the field. And then I want to take some of my game. Like I definitely watch a lot of Christian McCaffrey, just the way like he catches the ball and like how he carries himself and like his training off the field and stuff like that. So I would say those are my two biggest like running backs I look at.
Did you grow up an Iowa fan?
I did not. No, I grew up in Oklahoma, so.
So you tell me about Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. Those two guys have haunted Hawkeye fans' dreams for a number of years. I think back to, of course, obviously the McCaffrey game in the Rose Bowl following the 2015 season, but then also what Saquon did in 2017 in Kinnick.
Yeah.
That Trace McSorley, Saquon versus, what was it, Nate Stanley, Josie Jewell, those guys. I guess Iowa fans would probably be pretty happy if they got a guy who's looking at tape of Saquon and Christian McCaffrey at this point. So I'm curious, you mentioned before we went live here that your dad was in the Air Force and you have a very unique military history in your family. I'm curious what that does for you character-wise. We always talk about discipline. Our co-host for our college football, Iowa football postgame shows is Coach Don Patterson, who was offensive coordinator with Hayden Fry back in the 80s and 90s. And he was an Army cadet and played football at Army. And so I always get a unique background and how that's changed him from a character standpoint, discipline-wise, etc. So what has your father's background in the Air Force done for you as it relates to just maybe discipline or other character traits?
Yeah, I think it's been I'd say an advantage for sure in terms of just growing up in an environment, a tougher environment, not like anything crazy, but just like a stricter household and things like that. So I'd say the discipline part, like you said, I've been pretty disciplined for my entire life. So I think going into camp, it won't be as big of a shock as it might be to some other kids because I've kind of been around it for my entire life.
Are you a kid that carries a chip on your shoulder or looks for reasons to have extra motivation, or are you just kind of like, I'm doing my job, I don't care what the outside world says?
I definitely would say I carry a chip on my shoulder just because there's always been a little like tag next to my name in terms of like my recruitment and like reasons why I wasn't good enough or something like that. So I definitely would say I have something to prove for sure.
Did you have any other Power 5 offers?
No, Iowa was the only one that Power 5 that actually offered.
Were there other schools after Iowa offered that tried to get involved?
Yeah, I was in contact with Purdue a lot. And then after I offered Notre Dame, I was in contact with Notre Dame for a little bit. And then those are the only two other Power 5 schools that really came knocking on my door. Oh, and Iowa State too. I was in contact with Iowa State a little bit.
Let's not totally discount your recruitment because you have a bunch of FBS offers, but a lot in the MAC. I think I saw Old Dominion. You had an FCS offer at Indiana State. Was there any question once you got an offer from Iowa? Was it, I mean, what ultimately settled on, what made you settle on the Hawkeyes besides being the Power 5 opportunity?
Yeah, that definitely played a big role, but that definitely wasn't all that played into it. I didn't just say as soon as I got the Power 5 offer that I was automatically going there. But definitely the environment, like once I got to campus, it was a great environment, and like seeing the brotherhood that the Hawkeyes have and the coaches and everything, and being around in Iowa City, it just felt like a place I could really thrive and play well. So that's ultimately why I chose Iowa.
For people that don't know about Xavier's high school background, I'm seeing an all-state selection in 2022 as a junior, just short of 1,500 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, 6.5 per carry, also 28 yards through the air. What did your senior year look like on the field?
Yeah, my senior year, I actually ended up getting injured in our second game of the season. So I only played in, I think, 4 or maybe 5 games. So, my senior year was cut a little bit short, for sure.
Can you give us an idea of what type of an injury?
Yeah, I sprained my ACL and MCL. So, but I'm fully recovered now. And after football, I actually played basketball too, and we had a good season. So it's not a problem anymore.
Position do you play on the basketball court?
I play small forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you told me before we started recording that you're an OKC fan. Hawkeye fans that watched my show have probably been throwing up nonstop over the last month because all I've been talking about is Luka Doncic and the Mavs. But I think it'd be unfair not to bring up the recent OKC Dallas series, which was a great series. And
it was.
Obviously, I can say that a little bit more confidently as a Mavs fan because Dallas came out on top. But it's about as close of a 6-game series as you can imagine. Just your thoughts on OKC's future because you are a big Thunder fan.
Yeah, I think we're in great shape. I definitely think we found our guy in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for sure. And then I think we're missing another big, like a true big, like Chet. He played well, like he did what he could do, but we need like a bigger body, and then that way Chet could play the 4. But then we have a ton of picks coming up in the future, so I don't see why there's any reason why we couldn't draft someone or maybe make a trade with all those picks because we have a lot of good like assets, I would say, like good players that could be used on other teams, if not on our team. So I would definitely say the future's bright for sure.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is unstoppable in the mid-range. And I've, watching these 3 series for Dallas has went up against a lot of great individual talent, whether you're talking about James Harden or, Kawhi Leonard didn't really play much in the Clippers series, but Shai, and then in this most recent series, Cat and Ant. But man, I don't know that there's anybody that I have more respect for in that group than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because the dude just goes about his business. And I don't want to try to equate that back to you as a football player, but is that kind of how you are, just kind of like as a running back, especially a guy who can lay a hit? It seems like oftentimes those guys, I want to totally stereotype the position, but it seems like those guys pride themselves in contact, physicality, and they don't need to chatter. Are you a guy who embraces trash talk, or are you kind of just a do your own business guy and let my game speak for itself?
I definitely keep to myself when it comes on the field, but I mean, if someone says something, I wouldn't hesitate to trip back a little bit, but nothing crazy. For the most part, just keep to myself and let the game do the talking. That's the way I'd like to play.
What do you think Ladell Betts can mean to you long term? Like, I know from a recruitment standpoint, hey, he's a Power 5 coach. He played in the NFL. But specific to your game, what do you think Ladell Betts can mean for you?
I think, like you said earlier, our similar body type and our kind of similar play style, I feel like we could relate to each other well. And like what worked for him might also work for me. And in terms of like training and like what to do and practice and like tricks during the game. So I think it could definitely be a good like match for sure.
How much do you know about Iowa's current running back room? Are you close to anybody that maybe you got to know on your visits?
Yeah, I'm not super close. Obviously, I'm cool with Brevin, and then I've met all the other guys in the room, but I don't talk to them on a regular basis or anything, but that'll probably change soon in a couple of days.
Well, you're a guy, you talked about being under-recruited to some extent. 247 Sports has got you basically right at 1,000th in the country overall. I always reflect back on this because I remember a couple of years ago talking to Addison Estringa, who is an Iowa tight end from Wisconsin, Midwest kid, who I think was maybe 1,200th overall in the country. And I remember just asking him, like, that's got to motivate you, whether you want to admit it or not. I would, if I was in that position, I'd probably just be like, hey, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. And I think that's a natural reaction. I'm assuming you kind of feel the same way. You mentioned having a chip on your shoulder earlier. Addison Estringa went on to play as a freshman tight end at Tight End University. So, and Kamari Moulton's another good example. Here's a kid who was a very late ad for Iowa's 2023 class. The dude's playing his freshman year. That's got to give you some confidence that you can get on the field early.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely know like everything happens for a reason. So I'm not really sweating it. I think I ended up at the right place. So I think it might have been a blessing in disguise the way that my recruitment went. But I definitely think that I have more to show people and like prove what I could do for sure.
All you need is that one offer, right?
Exactly.
An opportunity. So Last thing I wanted to cover with you, Xavier, I know you have not had a chance yet to develop a relationship with Coach Lester. I'm sure that will come. But talk a little bit about his system, what you know about him as a coach, and why you stuck with your commitment during the process of the hiring of a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so I know he was at Green Bay. He's spent some time at Green Bay a little bit, and then also at Western Michigan. So I definitely know that he's like been around, and he has been around the NFL program. So obviously, I don't think they could do anything but help in terms of what he does at Iowa. And then I never really, like when he got hired, I never really. I mean, obviously I had questions, but I never really like strongly considered decommitting or anything like that. I actually had a phone call with Coach Betts, and we just talked about it. And he said he was staying, and some other coaches were staying. So I really wasn't sweating it too much because I knew I was still going to be in good hands.
One guy that I've always admired, and he's a few pounds ahead of you, but A.J. Dillon is quite a success story in the NFL. Iowa faced him, I think, in 2017 in Pinstripe Bowl out in New York. And Tim was, of course, part of that Packers staff last year. Xavier Williams out of Indiana. I asked you earlier if you consider yourself a Chicago kid. You're like, not really. So you're not a Bulls fan. Do you follow the Bears? Do you follow the Blackhawks?
Not really. I think when I first, like not a couple years ago, but a while ago, I think it was like 2016 or 2015 when they were like winning the when they're NHL playoffs. I followed them during that time, but don't follow a whole bunch now. I know they got a really good kid, Connor Bernard, I think his name. So I might start picking it up a little bit now for sure.
Do you follow college basketball to some extent?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy watching college basketball. I'd say more than the NBA most of the time, except for like NBA playoffs. But I don't really have obviously Iowa's my college team now, but before that, I never really had a college team. I just like seeing good games for sure.
Okay. What's the closest like Division I school to your area? Like how close is like Indiana State? Or, I mean, obviously you got like Northwestern in Evanston area, but what's the closest Division I school to your hometown?
Purdue's like an hour and 15 minutes away. Okay. IU is like 3 or like 2.5, 3. Indiana State's like an hour and a half away. So those, and obviously Northwestern, they're pretty close. So those are like the closest big schools.
Did you grow up going into Chicago a lot, like for recreation, doing different things, or did you guys kind of stay outside the city?
I think for like big events, like sometimes like birthday parties or like dinner or something like that, but not as much as you would think. Like it wasn't like a normal thing to just go to Chicago on the weekends, but it wasn't like a foreign place either. I've been there a solid amount of times. So
what fills your time when you're not training, playing football, playing basketball?
Really, I mean, I like hanging out with my friends, family, take my dog on a walk every once in a while. But if I'm not training or like actively doing like football or basketball, I'm probably just hanging out with my friends or at home with my family.
What kind of a dog?
It's a pit bull mix. Her name's Pinky.
Cool. So is Pinky coming with you to Iowa City?
Nah, can't handle all that. She'll stay here with the fam, but yeah. I'll be ready to see her whenever it's time to come home.
Who are you rooming with when you get to Iowa City?
Joseph Anderson, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you guys can battle physically too, or I think you two both embrace the physicality aspect of the sport. What do you plan to major in? Do you have an idea yet?
Yeah, I want to major in finance.
Okay. And as far as life after football, I know that's a ways off. Your focus is on college and on football, but what's your projection there?
I mean, obviously the end, like the goal is the NFL, but I don't know. I haven't really thought too much. I took a lot of business, like finance classes, like accounting classes in high school. So that's really why I chose it, because I kind of like excelled in those classes, but I haven't really thought a whole bunch in terms of like an actual job after college yet.
Well, we appreciate you being here and checking in with us prior to your arrival to Iowa City. Safe travels. It's not that far. It's like 2.5 hours to Iowa City from your home?
It's like 3.5.
Was it 3.5? Okay.
It's still not too bad.
Yeah. I'm guessing your family will be able to come to most of your games?
Yeah, for sure. They'll definitely make the trip out.
And do you have a number yet assigned to you for?
No, I don't have a number yet. No.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, Xavier. Safe travels on your way to Iowa City. And we'll talk to you here probably in 2 months at Media Day. You'll be wearing the black and gold and getting prepped for the 24th season. So we'll see you then.
All right. That sounds good. See you then.
Really enjoyed the interview with Xavier. Perhaps the future of that room, him and Brevin Dahl. I know it's a loaded running back room, but LaShawn Williams will be gone before you know it. I still think it's going to be hard long-term to retain everybody in this room. I think it's almost a miracle, a minor miracle, that Liddell Betts was able to retain the guys he did during this past offseason. You've got, 4 or 5 guys who saw pretty significant playing time last year. So who knows? Maybe in a year or two, you're going to see a lot of Brevin Dahl and Xavier Williams. There's a lot of turnover in the sport, but Xavier Williams is matched up with the right guy for his play style, and Liddell Betts. Those guys should work together like peanut butter and jelly. So again, appreciate you tuning in. It was a pleasure speaking with Xavier. Stay tuned. More content, more recruiting news coming your way. Keep it locked right here. If you're on Spotify, Apple, listening to this via audio, be sure to give us a 5-star rating. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for a like. Be sure you're subscribed if you're a Hawkeye fan, and we'll talk to you next time.